Hello, and we are live. Welcome back to Nikki T Live. I've rebranded. It was I Am Developer Live before, but I don't know. I figured if I end up streaming other stuff at some point, it's just branding, I guess. But we'll see. Giving it a whirl. Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. And today I am hanging out with Todd Libby, or as he likes to fill out my Calendly invite, Todd Libby, which which I just have to bring it up because it was made before the stream because the Calendly event still says that. But clearly your name is correct on the stream. Yeah, Todd,
Correct.
how you
Yes.
doing today?
I'm doing good, Nick. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm a little tired, but I'm in good spirits. Aside from my, we have a pet hamster, and for hey, how's it going, Alex, and a few other folks there. Hey, thanks for joining. Uh, yeah, I have a hamster, and it hasn't been well. Hamster's name's Loki, and so I took Loki to the vet. I've never taken a hamster. It's the only pet we have, so I've never taken a hamster to a vet. But they take certain ones take hamsters. So, anyways, got the diagnosis and stuff, and looks like Loki's got like a respiratory infection. So I've been the one giving
Ooh.
antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, which is interesting, giving a small rodent a syringe, but Loki seems to be on the mend, so we're all good there.
Nice.
But uh, enough about hamsters. Although, thank you, Loki, that you're up on the mend, and thank you, Seth, for the follow. Um, I've totally derailed this already. Todd, for folks who don't know who you are, would you mind kind of giving like maybe a short origin story, kind of what you've been up to, future plans, shamelessly plug anything? I never have sponsors, so I always love it when the guests just shamelessly plug away.
Yeah, definitely. I am the lobster guy, as most people know me from Twitter. I don't know why. I have no idea, but yeah, I'm a senior accessibility engineer. I've been doing it for close to 25 years, right around that. So, I mean, I know the beard dates me, so I'm going for the Santa Claus look. I am an invited expert at the W3C, which means I just throw some ideas out there, and we're going to talk about one of those today. And other than that, I run a podcast myself, the Front End Nerdery podcast with our good friend Homer Gaines. So, yeah, that's about the short of it.
Okay, I didn't realize Homer is doing it with you now. I'm going to drop some links there in the chat if you want to check that out. So these are all the places you can follow Todd, and I believe it links to Front End Nerdery too. But okay, that's cool. How long have you been doing it with Homer? Because I could have sworn, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I caught the first season and maybe a bit the second season, and I think it was you at the time.
Yeah, we are. This year has been the first year we've been doing it together. The podcast has been running. I've got 2 full seasons by myself, but I, needed some help. So Homer's the guy. We talked a little bit about accessibility. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. And are you wrapping up season 2, or are you in season 3 already? I can't remember. I have so many podcasts.
We're in season 3, and both of us have been so busy that we haven't had much time to record some, but I do have some episodes in the can that hopefully will be getting out soon. We're doing transcripts and show notes for the next one that's coming out with Carrie Fisher. She's accessibility professional, and I just got done recording with the people from Compressed FM, James and Amy. So.
Oh, no way. Yeah, they're awesome. I never had Amy on the stream, but I had James on this stream, and then when I used to work at Dev 2, I had him on it forget what we talked about when he was on Dev 2, but, yeah, no, yeah, good people. Yeah, I gotta get, Amy on the podcast, talk about design. Uh, I don't know about yourself, but, for me, I'm, like, the person that, like it's kind of funny because like, I I'm not doing front end at the moment, but I've done a lot of front end, and even though, like, a designer can give me things, I'm the person that's gonna take, like, a week trying to figure out what font or 2 fonts look good on my site, and it's like, you know, I definitely agree that, people can learn things for sure, but I think they're at least in term well, like many things, some people have this innate ability to just, that looks good, and you can't really quantify why, but they just know, and I definitely do not have that when it comes to typography. So,
Right.
cool,
Yeah,
cool, cool.
definitely. I'm not a designer anymore by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, no, it's, well, yeah, I guess yeah, we can talk a bit about that because like, you've been doing web dev for a while now, but like you've kind of changed gears in terms of what you do. So like you were definitely uh, around in the earlier days. Like I started doing stuff in the '90s, not necessarily professionally, but that's kind of just hacking on stuff there. So like you did some design, you did web dev, and then I'm curious when you not necessarily made the pivot because you're still doing web development, but when did you decide to kind of laser focus on accessibility maybe?
That was family members and friends who have disabilities,
Okay.
and seeing the looks of frustration on their faces, when they're trying to access something that's inaccessible digitally online. So, yeah, I hit the ground running there, and it's been, constant work ever since.
Yeah, and it's not I'm not an accessibility expert, but like I definitely do things because if you're doing anything front end, you have to keep this top of mind, obviously. And I can definitely see it being draining. Like it's something you're always trying to advocate for, and it can just be frustrating when people who just kind of shrug it off, or just like whatever. And it's like we can talk a bit about this before we kind of dig into like the big topic, which is deceptive patterns in the FAST framework. But like just like getting care about it, I guess. Which sounds weird to say maybe, but it really is something that it's a constant slog to just, encourage people to do it. And oh, hey Josh, hey, how you doing? Thanks for hopping in. Yeah, I'm just curious, like, because I know like it's been a bit of a drain lately from what like I'm not saying anything private. I've seen you post this on Twitter and stuff, or the blue sky. So I'm just curious about your thoughts about that whole thing.
Uh, I like I like the looks of Blue Sky just because they're open. The devs are open and listening and willing to take accessibility into consideration. And so I see Emmett in the chat. What's the quickest
Yeah.
win to start thinking about accessibility at the very beginning of the project? So I have a article on Smashing Magazine about
Okay.
bringing accessibility to your organization that addresses that right at the very very beginning,
No, that
even before the design phase.
yeah, no, this definitely makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like building anything, you need some solid foundations, right? And accessibility is
Yep.
a big part of it. And
Yep.
you know, and it's I just find it so interesting because like I've been guilty of doing div soup and stuff, like in the past, and like I know better, but now, but like part of the thing I find a little puzzling about accessibility, not accessibility itself, but people not doing anything in terms of accessibility is, if you stick to semantic HTML, you know, you're already ahead of the game, right? And like, don't get me wrong, like if
Yeah.
you're making some kind of complex components, it's definitely more difficult to make it accessible. But like, you know, if you're just doing like, I'm putting some buttons up, slinging some forms and stuff, there's so much that you can do that you get free out of the browser. And y- there's always that argument, oh well, I can't style it to make it look nice if it's accessible, but which is totally false these days. Like at that point might have been a little more valid 10 years ago, but like,
Yeah.
browsers have advanced so much, CSS is more powerful. So I definitely don't think that's an excuse anymore. And I'm just curious about your thoughts, or, just all of that. I'm just dumping all kinds of stuff on you.
um, yeah. So if you have that solid foundation, which is HTML, because we don't have an internet if we don't have HTML. We don't have web pages if we don't have HTML. Then you have that
Yeah.
presentation layer of CSS, which affects accessibility as well. And then you
Yeah.
have that layer of JavaScript, and JavaScript again that affects accessibility also. It's all in how you write it. If you're writing your code accessibly and with other users in mind, then
Mhm.
you're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. And Josh Goldberg saying in the chat, I always try to start with efforts that cost as little as possible and benefit as many people as possible. And often that's color contrast, just fixing colors and using semantic HTML, like we were mentioning. And it's a good point about the color contrast too, because like, one, there's tools out there, and a lot of times, like, I can definitely remember a, a moment very clear in my head when I was talking with one of the designers when I worked with Dev 2, and I was, just doing a color contrast check on some current design work he was doing, because it's like I didn't know what the ratios were, but I could tell just with my eyeball. I was like, it doesn't. It looks like it's probably not passing the contrast ratio. I popped it into. I used the WebAIM color contrast checker. I'm sure there's others, but and I
Yep.
said, and this gets back to what you were saying about, it starts at the beginning. So it was like even before we had shipped anything, he had stuff up in Figma, and I just came back to him and said, I ran this color contrast checker and it fails, but if you set it to this color instead, and honestly, if you looked at the two colors, the difference, you could barely tell. Like it was a red of some sort, and like maybe if you were like Superman or somebody with like crazy vision, you could say like it's definitely not the same color, but like visually they look pretty much the same, but it was past the color contrast. So like there's, it can just get far pretty quickly with just even free tools that are out there too. Okay,
Yeah, there's a ton of free tools.
Matchx saying I get cut off every now and then. Interesting. Maybe I'll stop moving now. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's tons of tools out there. I see. Are there certain colors that are more accessible than others? Color contrast, just a really quick explanation of this, is there's a formula that is basically the background color to the color of the text. And that's
Yeah.
just one of a few rules in WCAG. And for time, you have to have regular text, which is 14 points or higher at a regular font, at a 4.5 to 1 ratio. So these color contrast checkers will give you ratios when you plug in the colors.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the short of it. There are ratios to follow that you should because of the guidelines. Ideally, anything over 7 to 1 is good. You can go all the way up to 21 to 1, which is white on black, black on white, but you really shouldn't, because people with astigmatism and cataracts, they will see blurred outlines on the text. So going black on white, white on black text, it's not recommended.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because like we were talking about how, you know, it's not that difficult to get up and running. Like it does require some education for sure, but like we were saying, if you stick with semantic markup, just get started. There's some free tools out there. But when you're talking about like the astigmatism or maybe more complex subjects, like I know I've never. I think it's called. Is it a sip and puff? What is it? Puff and sip. I forget the name of the device.
Sip and puff, yes.
Sip and puff. So like I've tested things with like voiceover and I'll definitely check on mobile for like different screen sizes and stuff. But there's stuff I don't have access to, and even like so what you're saying, like astigmatism, maybe that's something that you don't necessarily know right away. So, like this is where like an accessibility expert comes in too, right? Um, like someone like yourself. So it's you know there's a lot to accessibility. Like there's definitely you can get to a good starting point, but like a lot of things, the work's never done.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up because it's like machines like Sip and Puff or a tap machine, those rely on keyboard accessibility. So if your site, you can tab through the site. Interactive elements should be tabbable, should have focus. If you can do that, you're ahead of the game again. Machine, there's software, and there's machines like tap machine, Sip and Puff again, that that help people navigate a web page that way. So it's very important. And just to add to this, where I don't have these machines because I don't use these machines. That's why we test with people with disabilities. Places like Fable, for instance. So
For sure. I'll find a link for Fable. Just pop that in the chat for folks interested. So Fable, like Todd was mentioning, it's actual people with disabilities that are actually going to go use your site and give you, I would assume, very constructive feedback in terms of making it accessible. So okay, cool. So we kind of set the stage a bit here. So like accessibility, it's ongoing, it's definitely important. Like you always say, right? I forget the tagline you always say. I'm butchering it.
So I have said in the past, accessibility is a right, not a privilege, but I've also added on to that lately because it has a little more impact when I talk with organizations. And I say, accessibility is a right, not a privilege. Who do you want to exclude today from, viewing your stuff or being able to buy your stuff? The disability community has so much disposable income that monetarily, when you say, there's a $3 billion, I think it was $3 billion worldwide that organizations have, which is the disposable income of disabled people, their eyes light up. So when you hit them in the wallet, that's when they say, "Oh, well, we got to jump on this." So that's in my experience, anyways. Your mileage may vary.
Hi, Mr. Evil CEO who cares only about money. Your site more accessible, your pockets will be lined with more dollar bills.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, not necessarily the best motivating factor, but if that does the job, at the end of the day, it's the result for that.
Yeah. You'd like it to be the right thing to do, but they're not going to do they won't jump on that train. It's the right thing to do. They're going to jump on that train where, we're going to make money here. So
No, exactly. And you were mentioning it briefly before, and this will so you're mentioning the WCAG, which is it makes it sound like something like the Illuminati or something. It's not, but it's the I dropped it before because I already forget what it stands for. It's the Web Accessibility Content Guidelines. Is that it? Or
web
I
content
had it in the
accessibility guidelines, yes.
okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so you're part of that,
Yeah.
and this kind of, I finally have a segue to bring us into what we came to talk about. So you're working on a framework for accessible specification of technologies, short for
Yep.
FAST framework, and
Yep.
there's deceptive patterns also. So let's kind of like, which do you want to touch on first? You want to touch on the deceptive patterns or the framework, or how do you want to tackle things?
Well, let me explain high level overview of the framework first.
Okay.
So basically, what the FAST framework is, it advises creators of technical specifications on how to ensure their technology meets the needs of people with disabilities. So
Okay.
if you're a content creator and you have some sort of platform, make sure it's accessible. Um, a CMS, make sure it's accessible. So that kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I dropped a link to it in the chat, so if folks want to check that out. So it looks like the latest draft is from. Actually, I might as well just switch to pairing mode for a sec here, just so we can bring it up on the screen here. So yeah, so and like a lot of things with WCAG, there's always these specifications and drafts that go up. There's a whole process to it, right? It's not just like unilaterally decided. Can you kind of speak to maybe like that whole process of like getting something into WCAG? I don't know if it's too dry or not. If it
Yeah.
is, we can definitely skip it.
It is, but I can give you a very, very high level overview. It's like being at a family reunion and arguing for an hour during the meeting, and
Okay.
then okay, we'll put this in the document, and we'll work on, like, for instance, this is the editor's draft, and then it'll get to a certain point where it goes to like a technical recommendation, a candidate recommendation, and then towards the end, before it's released to the public, it gets to kind of like a final recommendation.
Okay. Gotcha.
So
And
there,
you getting
so there is a process.
yeah, and you're getting a shout out in the in the chat. Josh is saying, "Do you ever stop and think about how awesomely bad that is that you're working on fast?" And I feel like people in the chat are probably going to start making Fast and Furious jokes. I probably would too. Uh, but yeah, no, I mean, it's like we're definitely going to talk more about fast, but like it is pretty cool that you're working on a specification that will affect like millions of people. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, what we hope to do with this is it's an optional set of guidelines for accessibility that kind of fills in those gaps where um, you know WCAG doesn't, because WCAG is a baseline for accessibility. Then you have things like internationalization, UX, usability, um, you know, performance. So there's other things that fit under that UX umbrella along with accessibility. So we hope to fill those gaps. We have identified over 1,500 so far,
Okay.
user needs and functional needs, and you can read about the user needs and functional needs in the document because I don't have time to explain those. But yeah, deceptive patterns is the mental health is part of the
Okay.
mental health piece to that specification.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Like I can think of one deceptive well, I don't know if it falls under deceptive pattern, but you know the doom scrolling with infinite scroll, like it's something that's on a lot of sites, Twitter included, and it's if we just talk about Blue Sky for a minute, they actually, I believe, have stopped this pattern because they just it shows the feed and then you have the option to say load more posts, and so I guess that's an example of a deceptive pattern in countering it, or
Yeah, definitely. So when you have that pattn where you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then you look at the clock and it's 6 hours later, I mean, that's affecting somebody personally. That's affecting somebody's, oh, I didn't make dinner. Oh, I didn't know the kids were outside burning the house, burning the town down, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And I, I I just, infinite scrolling is such a bad idea. And people are like, well, you know, uh, what is the other option? And there are other options. So and the one I'm trying to think of right off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of it,
Okay.
but there are other options. I have examples here if you want me to share. Just let me
Yeah,
know,
go ahead.
and then I can share those. Okay, so let's hopefully I can.
You can
Hopefully I
share them
get
in our
this
chat,
right.
or you can drop them in Twitch. If not, either one works. Um, yeah. Estevez or Lewis. I'm not sure what your name is. Estevez Lewis one. Maybe it's Lewis. They're wondering if virtual scrolling is a deceptive pattern too. This is like something like in. I think it got popularized in React, but basically you're only view. And it's more like a performance thing, but like you can basically keep scrolling, and then it's only ever the data you're currently looking at that's there. So I guess that kind of ties into maybe infinite scrolling. I'm not sure.
Virtual scroll. I would probably, that's a borderline, and I can't share for whatever reason. So,
Okay. Well, if you want to drop it
what
in
I
our shared Slack, or pop it anywhere. I've got too many entry points for people to drop me messages.
I have. Let's see. Because when I go to share, it's asking me to record.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, maybe just drop it in
So
Slack.
let's see if I can. Can you see my screen?
You haven't shared it yet. I mean, I see there's a little computer icon at the bottom if you want to share the screen. You might need to grant
Right.
permissions though.
Yeah. And I can't reset this, so let's cancel that. Let's do this. Let me give you the link to some slides.
Yeah, because while you're getting that out, like so, Todd's given this talk I think at least twice now, and I think are you still giving this talk this year, or
Yeah, I've actually given this talk since November of last year.
okay?
So it's been I've worked on this talk to improve upon it, and I think I've got it to the point where I will be giving this talk the rest of the year. The next conference I'll be at is KCDC in June, and then I just found out I'll be going to Magnolia JS in October. So
Okay, cool. Yeah, while you're looking that up, yeah, Josh says whoop KCDC, so I'm assuming Josh will be there. Josh was wondering too about pagination on Reddit. Is pagination considered a deceptive pattern?
No,
Or
pagination is actually, I prefer pagination, but some people some people like to grumble about it. So I
okay,
prefer pagination. All right, let's see.
Cool. All right. So while that's
All right,
loading
so
up.
I'm going to drop this in the
Yeah.
chat here.
Okay.
And then right
Okay,
there.
got it.
And then I will.
And I will drop that in the chat for people to check out. And I can share that on my screen too if you want.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Do that. So share that there. And let's come back here. Boom. Let me just zoom in a bit here. Okay. So
You can actually,
is,
there's that little computer screen on the bottom right of the slide. Yeah.
okay. Oh, okay.
And then, so this is our first ever recorded deceptive pattern. And,
Okay.
you know, do you want to vote for Adolf or do you not? And notice what is larger than the other.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
I was a little confused at first, like why do we have Adolf Hitler on the stream? But okay, yeah. So
this,
already I understand what's going on here. This is like obviously old school low tech, but I'm not sure what. I guess that says yeah. I took German for. I know
yes,
9 means no. So just in case it's
yes.
not clear, because this is an old document, but the small circle is 9. So I'm assuming what you're gonna go with here is people will probably choose yes because it's bigger and maybe be confused potentially.
Not as much confused as fear
Okay.
into, okay, if I vote no, they're going to know who I am and they're going to come for me. So they're tricking the people into voting yes for somebody that's not a really good person or wasn't a really good person. So that's this is for impacts. This is for people to realize that deceptive patterns can be really, really bad. Trump in his campaign, if you donated to his campaign, you didn't see that the checkbox was checked, and then you were going to pay in perpetuity for the rest of your life to his
What?
campaign every month.
Really? That is
So,
bonkers. That
yep,
is bonkers. Like,
yep.
I mean, even if
So, yeah, there's
yeah, wow, that's wow. Like, I mean, even if you're, I mean, I don't live in the States, but even if you were a Republican voting, like that's still shady for like your own party you're representing, that you're supporting. That's pretty
absolutely,
wild.
yeah. And
That's
politics
bonkers.
is filled with that. Politics is filled with that. If you look at your local ballot when you have items come up, right? It
Mhm.
Yes will sometimes mean you vote no, and no will sometimes mean you're voting yes. That's how they trick people. It's a deceptive pattern. So
Yeah.
this example is, I got an email. You're unsubscribed, bestie. I didn't know we were best friends. First of all, I didn't know the company I was unsubscribing from. We were best friends,
Yeah.
but then they have that little shame on the bottom there. That is more that could either be both, really. I mean, a
Mhm.
deceptive pattern, probably not. It's probably more an anti-pattern. An anti-pattern is something
Yeah.
that tricks or deceives the user, but it doesn't have intent. A deceptive
Yeah.
pattern is something that has intent.
Yeah. Like that little like realize you miss us. That just seems more like maybe marketing is trying to be funny a bit because you unsubscribe. But yeah, it doesn't seem really malicious
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
or like you said, deceptive patterns. Yeah, but yeah, I definitely have thoughts about unsubscribing stuff. One thing that grinds my gears is, well, there's a lot of sites like when you go to unsubscribe. There's one like I went to go unsubscribe 404, and there's no like sorry, a page not found, and I'm like, what? And so like now I'm forced to create these spam rules because you know, and obviously I could contact them, and then like if it goes on forever, I could file a bigger complaint, but honestly, I don't have time to do that. It's just more a
Yeah.
nuisance, but it's still frustrating, and like
Yep.
and sometimes like even finding the link, like even like my vision's pretty good. I mean, I have glasses for like a very small prescription, but like I'll get emails and then I'm like, okay, I don't want this anymore. And I have to scroll all the way to the bottom, and then there's this like super small like unsubscribe, and it's just, and I'm sure there's many other kinds of weird
Yeah.
patterns. Seth in the chat is saying Amazon, the shopping site, not the cloud. It's often used as an example for dark patterns. And I'm glad that you said dark patterns, Seth, because I know you're trying to change the wording around that as well, Todd. Like, because you've mentioned deceptive patterns instead of dark patterns. And I'm not saying that to throw you
Yes.
under the bus, Seth. It's I use the word dark patterns too when I spoke to Todd. So if you maybe want to speak to that too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, and I really carefully researched this. There's academic letters and articles out there, and we went from master to main branch in GitHub. We went from primary and secondary, or we went to primary and secondary drive instead of master slave drive. So there's this wording. I'm not saying that there's racist tones, but there's connotation behind it, and it's exclusionary in my opinion. So
Yeah.
and I don't think it fits. I don't think dark patterns fit. I don't think that it has anything to do with the light, and it kind of sounds kind of Halloweeny to me. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an attempt to trick a user into going down a path that they may not want to go down. So that's a deceptive practice. So
Yeah.
therefore deceptive pattern.
Yeah. Cool. Gotcha. Yeah. No, cool. And yeah, no, thanks for bringing up that example, Seth. And that's like a lot of there's unscribing from email lists, but there is stuff like Seth is mentioning, which is like, I don't want this service. It's something you're actually paying for, not just a newsletter. And I think some of them have changed it, but like, yeah, I remember trying to get out of like Amazon Prime because like I'm in Canada, so like, and I have Amazon Prime just because we do order stuff frequently, and you obviously get the other things like video and whatever. But every now and then I have a US account too because sometimes I will order stuff from the US, and it'll every now and then it'll say like it's usually once or twice a year. Hey, do you want a free month of Prime? Cancel whenever. So I always sign up for it, because I get free shipping for something I might be ordering from the States or whatever. But then when I go to unsubscribe, it's just like go here, go there. It's like
Yeah.
like obviously the correct thing would be, okay, I don't want this anymore. Go to my account, unsubscribe from service, or like make it very clear what you need to do. And I understand why they do that, but it's still not cool. Like we get that you don't
Right.
want us to leave your service, but one, why are we? I guess one, why are you leaving your service? Which brings up another thing about unsubscribe, which is when they ask you to fill out a form. It's like I don't want to pick anything. I just want to unsubscribe. It's like there's so many things. I
Right.
don't know. I feel like I could go on a whole rant about unsubscribing.
No, I actually recently went through something like that. I went to unsubscribe from a newsletter from a t-shirt manufacturer. The t-shirt
Okay.
manufacturer sent me an email. The email said, hey, click this button and go to your settings. And I'm like, no, I just want to unsubscribe. I don't want to go to my settings and fool around with
Yeah.
my settings on my account. I just want to unsubscribe. Putting that extra
Yeah.
step in is just an inconvenience. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we have more examples. I have like 4 or 5 more. So this is a good example. So you want to unsubscribe, like we're talking about, but please enter the emails of 3 people that are paid subscribers to cancel. That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, like
That's insane.
maybe when you sign up, maybe, "Hey, would you like to refer somebody?" But yeah, definitely not when you're, like, unsubscribing, but, that's wild. Alright,
Yeah, and I don't think they're gonna like have getting an email saying, "Hey, somebody's unsubscribing. You wanna subscribe?"
yeah, yeah,
Probably not.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
this one is interesting because this is on the app for DoorDash, and
okay,
that tooltip is covering up something very important. That tooltip is
okay.
covering up the fact that it says, "Hey, you got to pay an extra $2.99 for the express
Okay.
delivery."
Yeah, I didn't catch it, but
So
now that
if
you say it, I
somebody's
can see
just
part of the dollar sign. Yeah.
yeah, so if somebody's just blasting through the app to get their food, they're not going to realize that. They're going to click express to try to get it early, and believe me, it
Yeah.
doesn't work. I've tried it. So it's not a time saver. Um,
Yeah.
it's somebody's gonna just blow right through that and not even see it at all, and be like, why is this $3 more? So
Yeah. Yeah, and, definitely folks in the chat, they're like, "Wow, LOL," "hate when you have to
yeah,
email to cancel," like, all kinds of things, so but, yeah, that one is very deceptive because you obviously see it at the next step and maybe you don't even notice it, like, maybe it gets kinda mixed
yep,
up with tax and whatever. Um,
yep.
okay, so this one here.
So here is your classic anti-pattern. So I'll give people a few seconds to just quickly scan this and see where the issues are, because the next slide will show us those issues. Basically, what you have here is navigation, where there is just too much. But where is that too much? So
Yeah,
confusion. Why do you have this and this in there when it could be one category? So if you want to
yeah,
go to the next slide, you
okay,
have trainers and you have training. Now, trainers, to me, are things that kids use, shoes that kids would use to walk, learn how to walk. Training would be, shoes to go to the gym, the perfect set of
yeah,
shoes to go to the gym. So to an adult, if trainers may be shoes that adults wear, and training may be shoes that adults wear. So why is this two different things instead of one?
mhm, yeah,
And to
no, for
somebody
sure,
with a
and
cognitive issue, if somebody has a cognitive issue, they're going to have a very hard time getting past this.
yeah, it's also, like, just y I mean, I can read all this, but it just seems like too much to begin with regardless, like
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so if we move on here.
So this was the best one of the best that I've ever gotten. This came to my email, and it says, if if this is not your email address, please ignore this page, since the email associated with this page is most likely forwarded to you. So that means somebody sold my email.
Okay,
Now, the button, the call to action, you won't get any more calls, you won't get any more texts. We're breaking up. So there's not only unsubscribe shaming, but there's also, it's invasive. Um,
mhm,
I never signed up for anything with this particular company, and they sent this to me. So it's like, okay, I didn't know we are in a relationship to begin with, since we're breaking up. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
broken up over it. So go ahead. Uh
yeah,
I've never gotten a call or text from you. Is it me or is it you? I think it's you. So yeah, that's just, that's both actually, oh, we're breaking
yeah,
up. Make sure you click this, and then you'll probably weave your way through something. And then the
yeah,
anti-pattern being, they sent the email. So
yeah. No, yeah, that's definitely I'm breaking up with this slide. Let's move on.
yeah. So the final one here is, paying to play, and basically, hey, you've got an 11-day streak. You want to pay us so you can keep that streak? Come on now. And
Yeah.
Duolingo is a great app, I think, but how
Mhm.
how bad do you have to be to try and milk people out of money to continue a streak? And for those people that are a kind of a little OCD like me,
Mhm.
oh, I dropped that, $3.49. In this case, it's 3.49 euros. But
Yeah.
that something like that is a deceptive pattern, definitely.
Yeah, I see what you mean, 'cause well, I guess it can I mean, like you said, Duolingo is a great app. It's good for learning languages, but it almost seems like like, "Hey, continue your addiction, please." Uh, I mean,
Yeah,
it's probably a good addiction to be learning languages, but points made what you're saying, though, like,
yeah, definitely. And I think that's the last one I had.
okay,
So,
cool. Yeah, I'll switch us back
so that's
to
just
just
that's just some of them. And if anybody is interested in finding out more about deceptive patterns, I'll drop the link into uh, the chat for everybody.
okay,
There's a site. So the guy that I've been talking to, who coined the term dark patterns in 2010, Harry Brignall. He's a
okay,
UX researcher in the UK. Um, he wrote a book, and he even we talked a little while through LinkedIn, and when we had a call, he's like, "Well, I see your point to where deceptive patterns is a lot better terminology." So
yeah,
he not only changed the name of the site and stuff like that, but also the title of his book as well, which I thought was really cool. Um, the reason why dark patterns sticks around is because it's entrenched in legal terms. So
okay,
that part is where it gets a little sticky.
okay, gotcha, gotcha.
But there
Okay,
there are a lot of, if you go to the Hall of Shame on the Deceptive Design page, there are a lot of different examples you can look at. A few of them I got
okay,
in the stuff we looked at. A few of them I got from that site. But yeah, it's a really good
okay,
site. Um, you can find out, you know, lawsuits for deceptive patterns that have been taken to court in Europe,
okay.
UK, and some in the United States too. So
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing some of the things that people go ahead and do, and I I guess like a lot of things that are potentially bad is people people just kind of put up with it or just like just okay, whatever. But like at some point, there's a tipping point for people, and so it's like, yeah, there's. I'm still I'm still kind of laughing at some of those unsubscribe ones. It's like it is funny to some degree, but at the same time, yeah, it is weird too. Not just deceptive, but it's like,
yeah,
why are you doing that? Like, do you really need to do that?
yeah,
Like, and
yeah, it
I
definitely.
don't know. I almost would
So
be like, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, I was going to ask, have you bought concert tickets off of Ticketmaster?
Um, I don't I think I might have once, and we're talking years ago. Like, I haven't been
Okay,
to a concert since pandemic, but
right.
before that, a lot of times it's just been a friend who had already got them, so I haven't really used. I think
Right.
I might, like I said, maybe once, and I can't remember when. So
Okay. So if anybody in the chat has, let me know, because when you go and buy a ticket from Ticketmaster and you're searching for your seat, there's a timer, and I can't remember if it's 5 or 10 minutes. But
okay,
that's an anti-pattern, and here's why. You're buying that ticket. You're picking
Yeah.
out the primo seats that you want for your concert, right? But then
Yeah.
something distracts you and you go off. You have to get you have to take care of something, the kids or whatever. And then you come back
Mhm.
and it's 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. Um,
Yeah.
and then you come back, the timer run out. Now you have to go through the process all over again.
Okay. Okay.
Now
Yeah. Yeah.
imagine somebody with a disability doing that.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
another example.
Okay. Yeah. I see what you mean. Like if I can't react properly within about 5 minutes, already I'm screwed. So like, yeah, no, that's not cool. And it's
Yeah.
and I guess like you said, it's an anti pattern in the sense it's not necessarily malicious, but it's also it's still unfair though.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. Yeah. And
So,
uh, uh, sorry, Alex in the chat saying the Ticketmaster timer is the worst. And not to mention is a different price. Also, if your internet is spotty and the pages can't load properly, like there's other factors, like and we don't necessarily need to dig in that today, but like even like building websites, like when people talk about speed and stuff, like people we don't have like I'm privileged in that I have like 1 gigabit internet now, but somebody else doesn't have that, and so like me saying, yeah, I got to the site, boom, bang, ordered the tickets, versus like I'm on slow 3G and the Ticketmaster site's still not loading. So that's a great point, Alex.
yep.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yep.
the, there's so
Definitely
many.
performance. Yeah, definitely performance affects accessibility.
Yeah,
Not everybody has the latest phones. So, make sure your sites and your pages are, loading fast and, um, you know, performance is where it should be so that people that don't have those latest devices can access it. People in rural areas too. So
yeah,
they
exactly.
may have the best phone. They may have the best phone, but they're in, North Podunk and
Yeah,
they have one bar for whatever reason. So,
yeah, exactly. It's and it all kind of comes back to like it takes a lot to put out a really great site. Like there's so
it
many
does.
things that go into a site. Like you know, it's great when people learn like, okay, I learned HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. That's great. But then there's like so many other things, and like obviously it's a journey to learn all these things, and you don't even necessarily do it all yourself. It's a team, but
Right.
it,
Right.
it's just it's a big endeavor, you know. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you mentioned that because I see these lists on Twitter all the time. Hey, here's the 14 things you need to learn, and they go down the list,
yeah,
but there's never anybody that mentions accessibility.
yeah,
Never. And I always have to throw a jab in there and say 2A accessibility, HTML number
yeah,
1, CSS number 2, 2A accessibility, please,
yeah. And the thing too about that is that for folks in the chat that are interested in front end development or are already doing it, you're like I can say for certain, like at Netlify, for example, like when they hire for front end, it's not because like I distinctly remember like back in 2016 until pretty much every front end job I had at that point, no one ever asked me about HTML, CSS. It was like JavaScript or TypeScript.
yeah,
And I mean, I could do the other things too for sure, but it's just the interview process was never about that. It was always about,
right.
what do you know with JavaScript, and like, so all that to say, the other things are definitely super important as well. And uh, like I said, at Netlify, like they explicitly go out of their way in the interview process in a good way to ask about accessibility and what you've done with accessibility.
Nice.
So if you are interested in front end development and you want to stand out from others, like as soon as you know even a bit of accessibility, you're probably ahead of the game over a lot of people. And so and aside from helping people, that can also be a bigger paycheck potentially because,
Yeah.
it's another skill and it's a way to stand out.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Um,
Yeah. If
yes.
you have that specialization, that's value.
Mhm. Yeah. So we pretty much, I think, covered everything we wanted to talk about today. Is there? I'm gonna drop again a link to Front End Nerdery for folks to check out. But is there anything else you kind of want to touch on, or other stuff you've been up to? So, like you said, the podcast has been not slow, but you've just been busy, and I totally feel this because I have a not so popular podcast just because I haven't put out that many episodes. But I have about like 5 episodes I need to put out, and I just haven't had a chance to edit them, because I do want to edit them instead of just putting them out as is. But
Right. Right.
yeah, but you were saying you plan on getting a few episodes out in the next few months, I think.
Yeah, we have one that's almost complete. My partner, bless her heart, does the transcripts, and we
Oh, nice.
we ensure that the site is accessible. Um, so we have transcripts. She's working on the latest episode. I have that episode with James and Amy. Homer and I have a one-on-one episode we did where we actually talked about deceptive patterns.
Okay.
We talked about what I talked about today. That'll be coming out at some point, and then we plan on shenanigans and tomfoolery at KCDC, so we're probably going to do a live podcast at
Okay.
KCDC as well. So, no, not KCDC. I'm sorry, Magnolia. That would be at
Okay.
Magnolia.
And that I think Magnolia GS is in the fall. Is that right?
Yeah, that's in October. I will be speaking, and I will be wearing a lobster costume during my talk.
Okay. So definitely, definitely check that out, or bring your big. You're gonna go check out Todd's talk. Uh, but
It's
no, that's
yeah,
perfect.
it's it. Yeah, it's in Jackson, Mississippi, and let me get the date because the dates because I want to plug them. It's a
Yep.
terrific um, conference, and um, last year I spoke there and I had a blast. So let me find the dates. But as far as anything else goes, um, I'm really just working on getting some stuff. There is going to be some change coming up, hopefully in July, that
Okay.
I'll be moving to either a DevRel or developer experience role, but we'll see.
Okay.
Um, I will always advocate for accessibility, but um,
Yeah.
the auditing and all that remediation and all that work, it's just, yeah, 17th and 18th. Thank you. Um,
Yep.
yeah, the auditing and the remediation, I'm just so tired. I'm actually coming out of burnout right now, and the burnout was just so long.
Okay.
So gonna make a move to other areas, but you'll
Okay.
always
Gotcha.
hear me talk about accessibility or finger wag on Twitter about alt text. If you don't have alt text in your images on Twitter, I'm coming after you.
Okay. That's that's something I try to be pretty good with. Shameless plug, but I created a Chrome and Firefox extension that prompts it on Twitter at least. It prompts you in a non like annoying way. So like, hey, maybe you put some alt text kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's definitely important because like, well, it's helpful too when images don't load up. You can kind of know what it is like, but it's definitely super important. And like, it's a whole other topic, but I am curious about alt text because I do put alt text all the time, but I always struggle with how much should I put in? Like, you know what I mean? Like, for example, if I took a screenshot of like the stream right now, should I say in the alt text, Nick Taylor's stream with two guests, Todd Libby, and Mick Taylor. There is an alpaca with a goblin mask on, and the text here says like I always kind of struggle with like what should I put in. Like for example, like when I put out the social cards for the stream, I used to write like a lot of stuff in there, and I kind of reduced it to NikkiTV.live promo for S Todd Libby, for example, because it's visual, but it does like me describing what's in it. I don't know if it's valuable or not, and I kind of struggle with that. I just curious, like I know it's kind of changing gears here, but curious of your thoughts on like just what to put in
Right.
general. In terms.
So that there are many schools of thought on alt text. It's just it's the way some people like long alt text, some people don't. I subscribe to the theory if you're doing clear and concise alt text that conveys the message of the photo or the picture to the user, to the screen reader user, then you're doing fine. So it's just the 3 C's: clear, concise, and convey.
Okay.
And if the user can understand what's in that picture and mentally see that picture, then you're good. You're good. It doesn't have to be like that James Webb Telescope alt text that we all saw that was like 50,000 lines, 50,000 characters or whatever. That may be an embellishment. But that in that case, that was perfect though. So if you have something like that, for instance, it's a really complex image. Sure, you can get away with doing that stuff. But for something, like a tree in the middle of the forest that has a bow around it, for instance.
Yeah, with one ant crawling up on the left side of it, and like the wind is about 60 kilometers. Yeah, I'm joking around a bit now, but yeah, it's no. But thanks for saying that though, but like I guess bottom line though is obviously always provide alt text, and I guess describe, like you said, with the 3 C's: clear, concise, and what was the other one?
Convey.
Convey. Yeah. That makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
convey that alt text clearly and concisely, and you've got good alt text.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and drop links where folks can follow you again, like I said before, and just to mention. So this has got your Twitter, your GitHub, your Twitch. If you aren't already following Todd on Twitch, I know you're kind of getting back into streaming, so definitely give Todd a follow. And we got links to your website and YouTube. And kind of before we round things up, so you're giving a talk at KCDC. That's soon, right? When is KCDC?
Yes, that is actually Homer and I have an all-day workshop on how to do an accessibility audit, and then I'll be giving a talk the next day.
Okay, cool.
Let me get one more link I'll put in the chat for my newsletter, which is accessibility related stuff, some lobster content in there, and what's going on in my little corner of the world.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great.
Hopefully that works.
Yeah, no, I see it in the chat there. Cool. No, it's been awesome, Todd. This is super informative, and we do need to talk more about accessibility, and promote it. And as web devs, it's something super important. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time. I know you, like you said, you've been a little burnt out. You've got some stuff on the go, so I appreciate you taking the time to hang with me today. I think I'll only ask that you can fax me a lobster roll if you want.
I wish I could. I had some this past weekend, so I'm good. I had a really good lobster roll in Scottsdale. There's a place there.
Oh, nice.
So if anybody's if anybody's ever out here, let me know, and I'll hook you up with where that spot is. But yeah, thanks for having me, Nick. I appreciate it. I was looking forward to this chat and talking about this some more and getting it out there, and hopefully that some people come to me and ask questions if you have any, and definitely look me up online, and you know um, I'm easy to find. So
Yeah. Just follow the lobster crunch. What do you call those? And uh, I I had a
the
terrible
the
joke. Forget it.
the, em- the empty
Yeah.
shells and the clarified butter.
Yeah. No, thanks everybody in the chat for hanging. I see B1 Mine and Alex there at the end there. So cool. Yeah. Just gonna
Yeah.
mention before we head out, I'm gonna drop the schedule. Lots of more great guests coming on. This week's a double header. So tomorrow I have uh, Kevin Ball, who you all might know from a podcast called JS Party. He's called K-Ball on there. He's joining me tomorrow. He's an engineer who became a manager and now is focusing on coaching developers. So we're going to talk about that, and he's actually going to give me a mini coaching session. So I might be opening up a bit on the stream tomorrow. So there's that, and yeah, lots of other great folks going on. So definitely check all that out. And thanks as always, everybody in the chat, and thanks again, Todd. And if you just don't mind staying on for a sec, and everybody else, I will
Yep.
see you next week.